Welcome to Can't Stop the Pop, the podcast where we, that's me, Matty, and...
Oh, and that's me, Craig.
do a deep dive on a song from the 90s and noughties. So, Craig, what are we doing this week?
I am deliriously happy to say we're doing the Backstreet Boys, As Long As You Love Me. What are your immediate thoughts on this?
Absolute tune, like 90s staple. It's a great song.
I mean, it's going to be a very nice episode, isn't it? Because we're just going to agree, basically. But so, before we get into it, the Backstreet Boys, they are still around. They are a 5-piece boy band. AJ, Howie, Nick, Brian, and Kevin. They released this in September 1997. Their early albums, they had this weird release schedule. They were really popular in Europe before they were popular in America. So in the UK, As Long As You Love Me was the follow-up to Backstreet's Back. Whereas in America, where Backstreet's Back wasn't released as a single because it was their first album there, they hadn't come back from anywhere, it followed Quit Playing Games With My Heart. Either way, what a run of singles. Incredible.
Just absolute Max Martin masterpieces. And all of these songs are for any fans of musical theatre out there. I don't know why I'm Australian when I'm saying this. But
no idea.
All those songs were used in the musical And Juliet, which was all of Max Martin's songs that he wrote for various artists over the past 20, 25 years.
Yeah, and this song was written just by Max Martin because it is such a well-written, well-produced pop song.
But everything about it, it's just like a perfect little package. In my personal opinion about the Backstreet Boys...
Are you going to upset me?
I'm not going to upset you, but I'm going to put a little bit of maybe a controversial thing. I don't particularly ever think they have been the most charismatic boy band in the world. But the songs that they have had written for them and produced for them, that's what's made them legendary. Like, are they the biggest selling boy band of all time?
Are they the biggest selling boy band?
I'm pretty sure in the US or worldwide.
We are going to get One Direction fans hating on us.
Coming for us. Yeah, I feel like the Backstreet Boys songs, their songs were better than they were. If that makes sense.
I find this deeply offensive.
I knew you would. I just wanted to, throw in a controversial opinion.
You couldn't ever just have one episode where we agreed.
Nope.
I love the Backstreet Boys. They are the group I've seen live the most times. I adore them. Oddly, though, I liked them at the time. I wasn't massively into them at the time. And this song in particular is my absolute favourite by them. At the time, I don't think I even bought it at the time. It's one of those songs that, for me, perfectly encapsulates a specific period of my life. And I look at the song, I listen to the song, that twinkly guitar riff, and it just puts me right back.
It's just a quintessential 90s production. All the staples are there. The piano, the guitars, the way that it's synth, but it's not oops, I did it again level of that sort of bow bow sort of sound that some Backstreet Boys songs would do. This is just a beautifully written ballad. I do think the lyrics are a bit dated, but once again, as we've said in other songs on this season, I think that we can forgive that. You know, if you really wanted to tear it apart, it is essentially, I don't care what you've done, anything, just love me. And if you put it in that context, you're like, oh, okay. Which is actually, once again, hilarious to talk about the musical version. They actually make fun of that in And Juliet, and they have this whole bit where they're like, so I'm just checking, you don't want to know anything about me. You just want me to love you. Okay. Which is a bit of an odd sentiment. But I don't think that that's what the song is trying to say.
And I think even at the time, it always makes me think about leaving a relationship. I'm getting so deep in with these lyrics. You leave a relationship and you pick up scars through your life, and you sometimes end up with loads of baggage. And for me, the message is, doesn't matter. I just want your love. Speaking about the way the Backstreet Boys, I do get that what they perhaps lacked in the sort of the boy band personalities. I'm going to say that I think of all the major boy bands of the time. I'm thinking specifically NSYNC, I guess, but also 98 Degrees. I think the difference with the Backstreet Boys is that all 5 of them could sing, and they used all 5 of them on the songs.
Oh, totally agree.
And that's what I love about them. And that when they sing, when you see them live, they have such a warm personality. But they've sort of embraced songs like this. They perform these songs in the way that fans want to hear them. And I love that about them.
I just wanted to quickly go back to the lyrics, though. It really reminds me of of another song. Do you know the song "Get Here" by Aletta Adams? As in, I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can. It's a very similar in its lyrics, and it's the same sentiment of "you can reach me by caravan."
Oh, classics.
And it just lists all these ways that you can reach me. You have to get here. You can reach me by railway. You can reach me by airplane. But it's just like, I don't care how you get here. Just get here if you can. It's the same sentiment to me as, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done, as long as you love me.
That was a Max Martin trope, wasn't it? Love songs were very much the top line fairy tale idealism. I suppose that is what I love. And that did start to get stripped away. Understandably, I think it had to, as we sort of got to the end of the 90s and into the noughties, and the sound got a bit harder and the lyrics got a little bit more edgy, because the acts were growing up as much as the fans were growing up. I think what I do love is the fact that when they perform it the way it was. And don't hate on me, but I hate going to see I'm not going to name any artists, but you probably know exactly who I'm thinking of. And you go and I just sing the songs the way they were, because that's the way I remember them. And you might have performed them hundreds of thousands of times, but I've only seen you sing it twice or 3 times. So just sing it the way it was so that I remember it. And that's what they do.
But have they done that all the time, though?
All the times that I've seen them, they have. I'm sure they have gone through periods where they might have tried to reinvent them as a little bit more acoustic.
I don't know. There's acts that I see every tour that they do, and I appreciate the fact that they do something a little bit different there. I feel like you're talking about Steps doing 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, I'm not actually, but we'll stick with that, because
or you were going to talk about Britney remixing stuff.
Well, I mean, jazz remixes were the worst thing about the noughties.
You talk about the Hotel Onyx tour, by any chance? What I find interesting about the Backstreet Boys is just how many albums that they've released. I'm looking at their whole discography now, and it is really interesting that they didn't really stop either. There was a break of a few years between 2000 and 2005, but they have ploughed on releasing album after album. I love that. I love any modern act who had huge success in the 90s and has managed to... I have so much respect for them if they've managed to find their niche of their fan base. That means we can continue touring and we can continue releasing new albums which will complement the original stuff that we do. And, I'll cite people like Steps, I'll cite people like McFly, Busted, All Saints, and the Backstreet Boys. People who have used the new material to still be able to tour the original material to their fans without ever pandering to just the nostalgia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and I think that is definitely what the Backstreet Boys have done.
They've done it so successfully.
I have a tale actually about the first time I saw them live.
Oh, tale as old as time. Here we go.
When it started, I had this moment where the song started and I didn't expect to feel, but I suddenly started to feel quite overwhelmed. Again, I wasn't waiting for them to sing this song, but from the first few chords, I started to think, oh my goodness, I am going back to when I was 10 years old, 11 years old. There's a bit towards the middle of the song where the instrumental comes back in. As long as you love me. Come on, let's go. Yeah. As long as you love me. And the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I passed out at listening to them sing this song. It knocked me off my feet, literally. Did
you stay for the rest of the gig, or did you need to leave?
Yeah, I literally was a moment. I was back on my feet, or I was at least sat in my seat before the end of this song. But I remember just looking at my friend, and I just went to the floor. I never had that experience. Never had that experience before. And I've never had it again. It was literally the song and the music and the memories all at once just hit me, and I stacked it.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I don't love maybe your sugar levels that were in your body at that time. Maybe that might have been an issue, but I love that. I love the reaction that you've had to it. As someone that loves gigs, and I've definitely had. There's been a handful of moments of, oh wow, this act is going to perform this song, and for me, it's either been like a sort of euphoric moment, or sometimes just absolute gay abandon of me just screaming. That's amazing.
I think I did both because
Yeah.
we did a meet and greet with them as well.
Oh Lord, I would love to have been a fly on the wall with a meet and greet where you met the Backstreet Boys.
I was so cool. So we queued up. We queued
Don't
for
believe
hours,
that for a second.
and we were waiting to meet them. They were in a line, and Nick was at the end of the line, and I shook all their hands, and I was like, "Nice to meet you. I'm a massive fan. Nice to meet you. I'm a massive fan." And then we got to Nick, and he put his hand out, and I just grabbed him and hugged him, and then we were sort of ushered out. They were like, "Okay, that's enough." We did get a photo. If you'd asked me back in the 90s, said who's your favourite band, never would have said the Backstreet Boys. But there is just something about this, and this song in particular. I genuinely listened to the song before this episode, and I get goosebumps. I can't explain why. If it comes on the radio, I hear it in the car, it makes my skin tingle.
But that's because it brings you back to a time and a place and how you felt at the time. And I could give you an entire list of songs, and I go, okay, I knew where I was when I heard this, or this brings back this memory, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I wanna slightly shift the topic now, because we could talk about things particularly 90s about this. Let's just talk about the video.
Oh, I love it.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot to love, and there's a lot to question about the video. So the video concept is there are auditions.
Yeah, it's like they're auditioning, and you think they're auditioning dancers, but they're the ones. They end up the extras audition them instead.
It's so ridiculous.
And there's so many. So it starts. It's got like an intro, and it starts. They're just sort of hanging out in this studio with all these random props, and then people walk in, and the women walk in. They're obviously like, boing, eyes on stalks, and then the song starts, and they're just trying, I think, to impress the women in the video. And then the twist is that there's a remote. Oh, it's a remote control, isn't it? And the every time they press the remote control, something changes with the group, and the concept changes. And then they grab the remote control and press it, and then they're now at the desk, and the women are auditioning for them. Is that the questionable bit?
I mean, yes, there is also that, but you also missed out the very key moment for me in this. In that, once again, we need to get a sound effect for this. Ding dang dong. The dance break is so unnecessary. This is a ballad. This is a ballad with a capital B. It's barely mid-tempo. And they are dancing like it is Saturday night in 1999, even though it was 97. But they are going for it with this chairography.
With a chairography, yes.
And it's full-on chairography.
Yeah.
And they filmed multiple different versions, and every time they do the remote control, it changes the formation of the boys. And I'm like, I don't know what it is about every director of an American group or solo artist at this point was like, you know what will be really great here? We need a dance break. You know what we need?
Why does the director sound like it's from a dodgy Italian gangster movie?
I was going to say it's more like from Monsters, Inc. He's going to be like, Mike Wazowski. Just my vocal fry at the moment. Yeah, I will say, though, when the whole remote control thing and they keep changing, it gives me that, all the faces blending into one another.
Yeah.
It was that's such like, this is 97, right? But that was such a technique that was used in so many things in the 90s. It's sort of reminiscent of, MJ black or white video where you've got that whole, like, turning from there and then you're turning here, which is done, even today, that video, that still looks really quite impressive. Whereas this is just slightly cheap. For me, it's just all about that chair dance. Like, I don't know whose decision that was. And it's iconic. It's of its time.
It's the color scheme. It's lots of blue. It's really oversaturated. You're not really unnatural looking. It's
blue and
really,
brown.
really shiny. Yeah, blue and brown, but it's all really shiny and oversaturated. It's so bright, but it's one of those videos that I think just jumps out of the screen. You don't need to hear the song to know what's on. It's so recognizable.
The song doesn't care who you are, where you're from. It just jumps out of the screen
with an unnecessary dance break.
Exactly.
I just think the visuals. Yeah, it wasn't the standard of black and white, but back in 1997, the technology wasn't, I don't think, there to do them as much as they did. So I think just it shows how much money was invested in them. They were massive.
Oh no, they were absolutely humongous. And those first few albums, even though, as you say, it's a very odd release strategy with the Europe and the American thing, and we could do a whole episode on that. And I get really fascinated by album campaigns and the way that people, release their singles in different territories, or they release a double A side, all that stuff. Yeah, do you have any final thoughts on it? How did this impact the album, and how did it sell?
So this peaked at number 3 in the UK. It sold more than 500,000 copies, and actually, it was in the top 40 for almost 5 months. It was a massive hit, and it hung around for ages. And until downloads and streaming, it was actually the Backstreet Boys' biggest selling single in this country. Outsold Backstreet's Back, outsold I Want It That Way. I suspect Backstreet's Back has probably sold more now because of streaming and Halloween. But this was a massive, massive hit. It didn't chart in America, though, at all, because back in 1997, unless you released a single physically, it couldn't chart on airplay alone. Jive Records were really, really good at this. They didn't release physical singles because they wanted people to buy the albums instead. Kids couldn't buy a cheap single. They had to go and buy the full album. And Jive Records did that really well with their act. So
it's so funny to just chirp in. You mentioned it was Jive Records, because it's literally what I've just said about so many of these acts. It was all Jive Records acts that I was thinking of, where the singles campaigns and the double A sides and the way that different territories were getting this and that.
Yeah.
It's very clever. Whoever was working in those offices and those A&R departments, I salute you.
To me, this is my final thought.
This is my final thought.
You look at a song like this, and for a lot of acts, this would be up there with the biggest, best singles they ever released. But this was just sort of tossed out during the album campaign. Like a song like this, and the quality that was coming out of Sharon and Max Martin at this point was just incredible. It's almost inconceivable. It almost knocks me off my feet again.
Please, how are your sugar levels doing? Are you okay? Do you feel faint? Do you feel lightheaded?
I might do if we listen to the song.
We also haven't mentioned Nick Carter's curtains, but that could be a whole other episode. I think it might have been his curtains that made you faint, because they are quite something.
They are, in this video particularly, they are incredible. It's got like a helmet, but
they're so big that they've got their own postcode. It's just insane.
That was the 90s. That's what made us weak at the knees.
97 kids. That's what. Weak at the knees, ankles, ribs, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Right. If you want to listen to As Long As You Love Me, you can find it on streaming on all platforms. And where can they find us?
Can't Stop the Pop has a website where there are over 400 reviews, including this song, of course, which you can find at can'tstopthepop.com. We're also on social media. It's at Can't Stop Pop on X and can'tstop_the_pop on Instagram.
And I am at Matkins Actor on X and Matt_Atkins9 on Instagram.
If you like what you hear, we do have a Patreon at patreon.com/can'tstopthepop. So if you can donate anything, we've set it at the minimum, £1, no matter how small, we would love you forever.
We don't care who you are, where you're from, as long as you pay us. Sorry, I was sitting on that one the whole episode. Do get in touch, let us know what you think of the song, what you think of the show, and please leave a review, but only a good one, wherever you get your podcasts from.
Thank you so much for listening to me regale the time that I collapsed at a Backstreet Boys concert. And do join us next time for more
Can't stop the pop.